She lied about everything. My inheritance, my family, even Christmas. What they tried to hide from me will shock you. You won't believe how far they went to steal from me. This is just the beginning. The Christmas lights were twinkling outside my window, their soft glow a contrast to the storm brewing in my heart. I was sitting at my desk in the small apartment I called home, the hum of the city outside muffled by the glass. My fingers were poised over the keyboard, ready to dive into the latest project that my company had dumped on me. I worked as an accountant, steady, reliable work, the kind my parents had always hoped for me. Not the creative, dreamer type. No, I was the sensible one, the one who could always be counted on. But in the back of my mind there was always this nagging sense of being different from my family, as if I didn't quite belong. Even at 32 I still felt like the outsider. My parents, George and Mary Parker, were the epitome of the perfect suburban couple. They lived for appearances, always hosting parties, always dressed to the nines, always showcasing their flawless lives. They had a reputation to uphold, one they cherished far more than the comfort of their own children's emotional needs. Their world was one of surface-level perfection, and I had spent my entire life trying to measure up to that. Then there was Olivia, my younger sister. To say she was the golden child would be an understatement. Olivia had a way of effortlessly capturing the attention and admiration of everyone around her. She was spontaneous, fun, a free spirit. She had dropped out of college to pursue a career in yoga and wellness, a decision my parents had hailed as brave. They saw in her everything they wished for in a daughter. Someone who could stand out, who could break the rules and still be adored. And Olivia knew it. She relished every moment of it. I was the reliable one. The one who had put her head down, worked hard and followed the rules. My career in accounting, my straight A grades, my responsible attitude, it was all good, it all met expectations. But none of it ever felt like enough. It was like I was living in the shadow of a perfect family that I could never truly be a part of. That Christmas, like most, I knew I wouldn't be included in the big family gathering. I'd long given up hoping for an invitation to join the festive meals or the cozy, laughter-filled nights that seemed to be the norm in my family. That place was reserved for Olivia, of course. I had already accepted it, at least I thought I had. It was around 2 in the afternoon when my phone buzzed on the desk. It was a text from Mom. I didn't even have to check the message to know what it would say. Another canceled family event. Another holiday I'd spend alone. The message read, "Hey sweetie, just wanted to let you know that Christmas dinner is canceled this year because of the snowstorm. We're all staying home to be safe. Stay warm and let's catch up soon. Love you." I stared at the screen, the words blurring together as I reread them. I understood why they would cancel the dinner. Snowstorms in New Jersey could be pretty nasty. But the more I read the message, the more something gnawed at me. Why did it feel like my parents were always finding reasons to keep me at arm's length? Always something that kept me from being a part of what really mattered. I wasn't even invited to this snowstorm dinner. I was just informed. I put the phone down and rubbed my eyes, trying to shake off the feeling of isolation. It wasn't the first time. In fact, it had become a regular pattern for me over the years. There was always some excuse, some cancellation. But it always seemed to happen with me. Not Olivia. Never Olivia. A small part of me had hoped this year would be different. Maybe the storm was real, maybe they did cancel the dinner for safety. But a bigger part of me knew deep down that it was just another excuse to keep me away. After all, why would they want to spend Christmas with their quiet, reserved daughter when they could have Olivia, the radiant one, leading the charge? I sighed and stood up from my desk. A cup of hot chocolate would be my company for the evening. No lights, no party, no family. Just me and the silence of my apartment. I moved to the kitchen, heated up some milk, and stirred in the rich cocoa powder, watching the steam rise as I mixed. It was always the little things that made the loneliness bearable. Like the smooth warmth of hot chocolate on a cold night. I filled my mug, grabbed a blanket from the couch and sat down to watch Christmas movies on TV. It would be a quiet Christmas. And that was fine. I had grown used to it. But as I curled up on the couch, the flickering of the TV screen doing little to distract me, my mind wandered. Was this really what I wanted? Was this all I was ever going to get from my family? A series of half-hearted, convenient excuses? The phone buzzed again, pulling me out of my thoughts. It was a message from Olivia. "Merry Christmas, Ing. I miss you." Hope you're enjoying the quiet time. Let me know if you want to come by later. We're having dinner at Mom and Dad's. You know how they love their holiday traditions. The words hit me like a cold gust of wind. Dinner at Mom and Dad's. Olivia was always in the loop, always a part of the family traditions. I was never invited to. She was a star in their eyes, while I was the shadow in the background. I clicked on the link Olivia had attached to the message, and my heart sank. There was a photo of the whole family, Mom, Dad, Olivia, and all of their friends, gathered around a beautifully decorated table, laughing and enjoying Christmas dinner. There were no snowflakes, no dark skies, just sunshine. It was the perfect family scene that had been kept from me, a scene where I was not wanted. My throat tightened, and for the first time that day I couldn't hold back the tears. It wasn't the storm that kept me away from my family. It was the fact that they simply didn't want me there. I scrolled through more photos. There was Mom, beaming as she carved the turkey. Dad playfully teasing Olivia as she set the table. My nieces and nephews opening their gifts, their faces lighting up with joy. It was all so perfect, so effortless for them. And then there was me alone, sitting in my apartment, clinging to a holiday movie that felt so hollow now. The last thing I wanted to do was cry over something I couldn't change, but I couldn't help it. I closed my eyes and let the tears fall freely. Why couldn't I be enough? Why did I always have to be the outsider in my own family? I took a deep breath, wiped my eyes, and sat up straighter. I would not let them break me. I would not be the sad, forgotten daughter. I was done with pretending. I deserved better than this. It was time to face the truth, even if that meant confronting the very family I had spent my whole life trying to please. I don't know what it was that made me check Instagram that afternoon. Maybe it was the stillness, the heavy quiet that filled my apartment, or perhaps I was just seeking something to distract myself from the raw ache in my chest. Whatever the reason, I opened the app on my phone and began scrolling aimlessly, not expecting anything out of the ordinary. And then there it was. A new post from Olivia. I froze, my thumb hovering over the screen. The photo was the typical picture-perfect holiday moment. My entire family gathered around a gleaming Christmas tree, everyone smiling, the warmth of their faces glowing as they embraced each other. There was Mom with her radiant smile standing next to Dad, who was carving a turkey at the head of the table. Olivia was in the center, of course, surrounded by cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone in their festive sweaters, laughing and clearly having the time of their lives. But what struck me the most, what nearly knocked the breath from my lungs, was the bright, clear sky visible through the window behind them. No snowstorm, no icy weather. The picture-perfect, joyous family gathering that I had been told didn't happen, except it had, and I wasn't there. The realization hit me with the force of a freight train. The family dinner I had been told was canceled because of a supposed storm wasn't canceled at all. They had gone ahead and had it without me. The lie, the careful, calculated lie that had been spun to keep me away, was now in my face. There was no snowstorm. There was no reason I couldn't have been there except that they simply didn't want me. I felt a cold knot form in the pit of my stomach. The truth was inescapable now. They had lied to me. I scrolled through the rest of the photos, my hands shaking, as if hoping somehow it would all change, that I was mistaken. But it didn't. There was Dad with my nieces and nephews all laughing together. Mom arranging her famous sugar cookies in a festive tin, looking so content, so at home with everyone. They had all been together enjoying the day, while I sat alone in my apartment being fed lies. The emptiness inside me expanded as I realized this wasn't an isolated incident. No, this was part of a much bigger picture. A picture I had spent years trying to force myself to ignore. The countless times I had been told family events were canceled, the excuses for why I couldn't join in. How many times had I swallowed that nonsense and convinced myself that it wasn't personal, that I was just busy, or that they were busy, or that something had come up. The truth hit me like a slap in the face. It wasn't a one-time thing. They had done this before, and likely they would do it again. They had been systematically excluding me from their perfect family life. Tears stung my eyes as I stared at the screen. I wasn't angry at Olivia. She didn't deserve my anger. No, the anger was for the lies, for the deceit, for being treated as if I didn't matter. It was always Olivia who mattered, the shining, social, vibrant one. It was always her they rallied around while I was left in the background, dutifully doing what was expected of me, never quite fitting in. I blinked rapidly, trying to push the tears back. Why hadn't I seen it before? I put the phone down, the picture still haunting my mind. But I couldn't just sit here and wallow in the hurt. I had to confront it. I had to face what had been hidden in plain sight all these years. The lie had to be exposed. And as much as it burned, it was time to see it through. The next morning my phone rang. I didn't need to look at the caller ID to know who it was. It was Mom. "Hi, honey. I hope you had a quiet Christmas," she said, her voice as sweet and cheery as ever. "We missed you, but we understand, of course. I hope you're doing okay." I wanted to scream into the phone. How could she act so casual after what I had just discovered? How could she pretend everything was fine, as if nothing had happened? As if I didn't already know the truth? "Mom," I said, my voice tight. "I saw the pictures. I saw everything." The line went silent for a long moment. I could hear her breathing on the other end. A faint shift as if she was suddenly uncertain of what to say. "What do you mean?" she asked, the words coming out too quickly, too carefully. "I saw the pictures of Christmas. The family dinner. The one that was supposed to be canceled because of the snowstorm." I let the words hang in the air. There was no storm, was there? There was a pause. I could practically hear her scrambling for an explanation. Finally she spoke, her voice faltering. "Emily, it's not like that. You know how your sister is. She wanted everything to be perfect, and we thought it would be better if you just stayed home. You know how you can be at these gatherings, quiet, reserved. It makes things uncomfortable. We just thought." "Just thought what?" I cut her off, my voice rising despite my best efforts to stay calm. "That I didn't matter? That I didn't belong there? This isn't the first time, is it? How many other times has this happened?" She stammered on the other end, her excuses unraveling in front of her. "Honey, don't be dramatic. We were just trying to avoid any awkwardness, you know? You're always so busy with work." "Stop," I snapped. "This isn't about work. It's about you choosing her over me. It's about years of making excuses and pretending everything is okay." I could hear the hesitation in her voice as she tried to deflect. "You're overreacting, Emily. You always do this. Always making a big deal out of nothing." I sat in silence for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't even acknowledging how badly she had hurt me. It wasn't the first time this had happened, and it wouldn't be the last unless I did something about it. "You know what?" I said quietly. "I'm done. Done pretending that I don't see the way you've treated me. Done making excuses for you. You can keep your perfect family and your lies. I'm done." Before she could respond, I hung up. The next day I received a message. It wasn't from Olivia, but from my aunt, who had seen my confrontation with my mother unfold. The message was a simple invitation to a small family gathering. It felt almost like they were trying to make amends, but something about the invitation seemed off. It was as if they were trying to sweep everything under the rug, to pretend that things were okay, as if the problem would just disappear if I agreed to show up. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how fake it all felt. Were they truly trying to make things right, or was this just another ploy to get me to fall back in line, to take my place as the quiet, obedient daughter who didn't rock the boat? I didn't know the answer yet. But I did know one thing. I wouldn't go without finding out the truth first. After hanging up the phone with my mother, a cold wave of silence filled the room. It was as if the walls of my apartment had closed in on me. I hadn't expected her to apologize, but I hadn't expected the anger and denial either. Her words, though harsh, were nothing new. Just more of the same pattern that had played out my entire life. I had spent years trying to gain their approval, and every time I thought I was close, I was left standing in the shadow of their perfect family. It was as though no matter what I did, I would always be the one left behind. I sat there staring at my phone, the invitation from my aunt still on the screen. The words seemed to blur together as I processed everything that had happened, everything I had learned. For years I had done everything I could to make my parents proud. I buried my own dreams, my passion for art, my desire to follow a different path, so I could take the safe route, the one they approved of. Accounting was practical. It was secure. It was everything they wanted from me. But it wasn't everything I wanted for myself. Olivia, on the other hand, had always done whatever she wanted. She dropped out of college without a second thought. And instead of facing disapproval, she was hailed as brave by our parents. She'd pursued yoga, something that was seen as spiritual and free-spirited, the complete opposite of my regimented, rule-following existence. They adored her for it. She was the light of their lives. She was allowed to roam free, unburdened by responsibility, while I had been tethered to duty, to expectations. I clenched my fists as I thought about all the times I had worked overtime, sacrificed weekends, and put my own ambitions aside to help my family. How many hours had I spent crunching numbers for them, making sure their mortgage was paid, all while they praised Olivia for her courageous decisions? How many times had I been the one to show up when my father needed help, only to be ignored in favor of Olivia's latest adventure? The loneliness was suffocating. It wasn't just the isolation I felt in my apartment that night, but the emotional isolation I had been enduring for years. It was like I didn't even exist in their eyes unless they needed something from me. They never saw my efforts. They never recognized the sacrifices I made. The only time I was ever seen was when they needed me to do the boring things: pay the bills, manage the household finances, be the responsible one. Olivia got the love, the attention, the freedom. I got the responsibility, and I couldn't keep doing it anymore. As the weight of all these thoughts sank in, I felt a sense of clarity I hadn't felt before. I wasn't going to keep chasing after them. I wasn't going to continue pretending that their neglect didn't hurt, that I didn't deserve to be a part of this family. But the question that lingered in my mind was, why had I never seen it before? How could I have been so blind to the way they had treated me? Just as I was lost in these thoughts, the phone rang again, jolting me from my reverie. I hesitated, wondering who it could be. It wasn't anyone I expected, not after the call with my mother. My heart skipped a beat when I saw the caller ID. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I had to. I pressed the phone to my ear. "Emily Parker?" a low voice asked. The voice was familiar, but I couldn't place it. "Yes, this is Emily. Who's calling?" I asked cautiously, the unease in my chest growing. "I know who you are. I know your family. More than you realize, actually," the voice said, calm and steady. My heart raced. "What do you mean? How do you know about my family?" The person on the other end of the line didn't immediately answer. There was a long pause before they spoke again. "I've been following your situation for a while, and I think it's time you knew the truth. About your family. About what they've been hiding from you." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. "What do you mean? Who are you? How do you know this?" The voice continued, ignoring my questions for a moment. "There are things you don't know. Things about your inheritance, about the way they've been treating you. Things they've kept from you for years." I could barely breathe. "What inheritance?" I whispered, almost afraid of the answer. "What are you talking about?" "You'll find out soon enough," the voice said cryptically. "I can help you, Emily. I have information that will change everything. But I can't do it alone. You have to want to know the truth." I felt the ground beneath me shift, like I was standing at the edge of a precipice. Everything I thought I knew was suddenly being questioned. What truth? What inheritance? My mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. Could this person be someone my family had wronged? Could they be someone who had been watching from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to reveal what had been hidden? "Why would you help me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The voice on the other end paused for a long moment, as if weighing its next words carefully. "Because you deserve to know. You deserve to know the truth about your family, about what they've done to you, and what they've been keeping from you. But you have to make the choice, Emily. Do you want to know? Do you want to take control of your life again?" I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. This was it. This was the moment I had been waiting for. The moment that would finally pull back the curtain on everything I had spent my life ignoring. The truth was out there, waiting for me, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was finally going to be in control of my own story. "I want to know," I said, my voice steady but determined. The voice on the other end gave a small, satisfied sigh. "Good. I'll be in touch. But know this, Emily. Once you know the truth, there's no going back." I hung up the phone, my mind spinning with 1,000 thoughts. Who was that person? What did they know? And most importantly, what was my family hiding from me? I couldn't answer those questions yet, but one thing was clear. The truth was coming. And when it did, everything would change. The morning after the phone call, I woke up to an unsettling sense of anticipation. I had barely slept, my mind spinning with questions that had no answers. The conversation with the mysterious caller had left me both intrigued and terrified. There was a truth lurking beneath the surface of my family's facade, something darker than I had ever imagined, and I was about to uncover it. As the morning light filtered through the curtains, my phone rang. I stared at the screen for a moment, not surprised to see my mother's name flashing. She had been the one to feed me all the lies. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let it ring out, but I knew that would be avoidance, and I was done avoiding. I answered, my voice steady but tinged with a quiet anger that I could no longer hold back. Suatia. How was your quiet Christmas? We missed you, my mom said, her tone light and carefree, as though nothing had happened. As though I hadn't seen her and the rest of the family celebrating without me. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. Mom, we need to talk. I saw the photos. I know the dinner wasn't canceled. I know you lied to me. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I could practically hear her scrambling for an excuse, her mind racing. She cleared her throat before speaking, as though trying to find her footing. Emily, I don't know what you mean. The weather was terrible, and we thought it would be easier if you just stayed home. You've always been so quiet at these gatherings, so reserved. We didn't want you to feel out of place, especially when everyone else was having such a good time, she said, trying to keep her voice casual, as if this was a perfectly reasonable explanation. But it wasn't. I could feel the rage bubbling inside me, threatening to spill over. How could she say that to me? After everything? I had spent years being too quiet, too reserved. While they praised Olivia for her freedom, for her charm, for her ability to win their favor with a mere smile, I couldn't keep it in anymore. The years of frustration, of being overlooked and dismissed, had all led up to this moment. Don't lie to me anymore, Mom, I snapped. You didn't invite me because you didn't want me there. You've been pushing me aside for as long as I can remember. All these years I thought it was just bad timing, that it was some kind of misunderstanding. But it wasn't, was it? This wasn't the first time you've done this. You've been excluding me from family events for years, pretending like I don't exist. There was another long pause. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, a heavy, almost guilty sound. But instead of apologizing, instead of acknowledging what she had done, she tried to deflect, her voice shaky now. I'm not sure what you're trying to say, Emily. We love you, we really do. But we can't keep doing this with you. You're always so serious. You don't fit in with the family, and we thought it would be better if you just... If I just what? I interrupted, my voice rising now, the years of silence coming to a head. If I just stay out of the way? If I just stop trying to make you see me? You've always treated Olivia like she's the golden child, the one who can do no wrong, while I've been the one left to pick up the pieces. You never even acknowledged my sacrifices. I helped you pay the mortgage, Mom. I worked overtime. And what did you do? You praised Olivia for dropping out of college to follow her dreams. You said she was brave, but what about me? What about the girl who's been following every rule, every expectation you set, and still wasn't enough? I could hear her mutter something under her breath, something like, we never meant for you to feel this way. But it felt empty, hollow, just another excuse. No, I said firmly, shaking my head, though she couldn't see me. I'm done making excuses for you. I'm done pretending that this family is something it's not. All this time, I've been trying to fit into a mold that wasn't meant for me. And now I'm seeing the truth. The truth that you've been lying to me, that you've been making me believe I was the problem. But it wasn't me, Mom. It was always you. The line was silent again. The silence this time wasn't filled with excuses or pleas. It was filled with something else, something I hadn't expected. A crack in the armor. Finally she spoke, her voice strained. Emily. There's something you need to know. My heart skipped a beat. Was she finally going to admit it? Was this the moment when everything came crashing down? What is it? I asked, my voice trembling now, a mix of anger and fear. You've always felt out of place, haven't you? Like you didn't belong. But you've never asked yourself why, she said softly. The truth is, we did that to you. From the moment you were born, we made you feel like you weren't good enough. We made you doubt yourself, made you think that you were too quiet, too serious. We told you it was because of you, but it wasn't. My chest tightened as the words settled in. What do you mean? What are you saying, Mom? She hesitated, as though unsure how much to reveal, but then she let out a long, shaky breath and said the words that shattered everything. We did it because of the inheritance. Your grandfather left you money when you turned 25. Money that was supposed to be yours. But we didn't want you to have it. We didn't want you to know about it. I felt the ground fall out from under me. What? What are you talking about? We manipulated you, Emily. We made you feel small, made you think you weren't good enough so you wouldn't question us. So you wouldn't know about the inheritance. We hid it from you. We kept you in the dark. Kept you from realizing what was really happening. I couldn't breathe. You? I choked, the betrayal weighing on me like 1,000 pounds. You did this to me? You made me feel like nothing, like I didn't belong, just so you could keep the inheritance from me? Yes, she whispered. I'm sorry, Emily. I'm so sorry. But the damage had already been done. The truth had come crashing down, and with it every single lie I had lived with for years. I wasn't just hurt by what they'd done to me physically. It wasn't just about the inheritance. It was about the psychological manipulation, the constant undermining of my worth. They had taken more from me than I realized. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I sat at my kitchen table long into the night, the weight of the conversation with my mother still heavy in my chest. The truth had been revealed, and yet it didn't feel like the relief I had expected. Instead, it was like a shattering of my whole identity, a loss of everything I had once believed to be true about my family. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my fingers trembling as I picked up my laptop. The decision had been made. I couldn't let them manipulate me any longer. I couldn't let them keep me in the dark any longer. If I was going to move forward, truly move on, I needed to expose the truth. I needed to take control. I opened a new document and began typing. The words came fast, almost as if they were pouring out of me without thinking. I wasn't going to hold back anymore. Dear family, I can no longer pretend that things are fine. I can no longer live under the illusion that we are a happy, loving family. I know the truth now, and it's time you all faced it. For years, I've tried to earn your approval. I've done everything you asked, sacrificed my dreams for the sake of your expectations. I worked overtime, I gave up my personal aspirations, I did everything that you said would make me a good daughter. Meanwhile, Olivia, who could do no wrong in your eyes, was free to live her life the way she chose. But now I see the truth. I see that I was never truly wanted. I was never part of the family's plans, just the one who took care of the practical matters. The responsible one who would always be there to fix things when they went wrong. You excluded me from family events, lied about canceled dinners, and all the while made me feel like I wasn't enough. But the most hurtful thing of all is what you kept from me, the inheritance. You manipulated me for years, made me feel inadequate, and kept me from knowing the truth. You robbed me of what was rightfully mine, and you did it under the guise of love and care. I'm done. I will not stand for this anymore. You cannot control me. You cannot make me feel small anymore. I'm writing this letter to let you know that I'm taking back my life. I'm done being the one who gets pushed aside, the one who is forgotten, the one who is left in the shadows while Olivia shines. I am reclaiming my truth, and I will no longer let you or anyone else tell me that I don't matter. This is my last communication with you. I'm not looking for apologies. I'm not looking for excuses. I'm looking for freedom. And I've found it. Goodbye, Emily. I sat back staring at the screen. The weight of what I had just written was immense, but it felt like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. I wasn't going to apologize for who I was anymore. I wasn't going to apologize for standing up for myself. I clicked send, and as I did, I felt the finality of it. There was no going back. I had made my decision, and now there was no way to undo it. The replies came fast. Almost immediately, my phone buzzed with notifications, the family group chat lighting up with messages. The first message was from my mom. Emily, we need to talk. What is all this? Why are you being so dramatic? We did everything for you. We didn't want you to feel left out, but you always push us away. This isn't how you should be acting. My father's message followed. Emily, I can't believe you're doing this. I raised you better than this. This is nonsense and I won't stand for it. Then Olivia's message came through, and it hit me like a slap. Really, Emily? This is how you want to handle things? You've ruined everything as usual. You're being ridiculous, and I'm so tired of you always making everything about you. I took a deep breath and read through their messages again. They were all the same. Denial, anger, blame. None of them took responsibility for anything. It was always about what I was doing wrong, what I had misunderstood. As if none of their actions were the problem. I felt a surge of rage building inside me again. How could they be so blind? How could they not see what they had done to me? But I didn't want to waste my time on their excuses. They weren't going to get away with it anymore. I typed a quick reply to Olivia. You don't get to tell me how to feel anymore, Olivia. You don't get to play the victim when you've been part of this manipulation from the start. I'm done. I didn't wait for their responses. I didn't care. It was time to move on. The family I had known no longer existed. What I had once hoped would be a support system was now a broken, fractured group of people who had manipulated, lied, and hurt me for years. They didn't deserve any more of my energy. Later that afternoon, I found myself sitting alone in the living room, my phone still buzzing with incoming messages. But I didn't pick it up. I didn't need to hear what they had to say anymore. I had already heard enough. For the first time in years, I felt like I could finally breathe. The weight of their expectations, their lies, and their constant dismissal of me had been lifted. It wasn't about the inheritance anymore. It wasn't about the material things they had kept from me. It was about my peace, my self-worth. I didn't need them to validate me. I didn't need their approval anymore. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city skyline. It was cold outside, but the sky was clear. There was a sense of clarity in the air, as if the world had finally opened up in front of me. I had taken control of my life again. I wasn't just a daughter in their eyes. I wasn't just the one who worked tirelessly for their approval. I was Emily Parker, and I would no longer let anyone define who I was or what I was worth. For the first time in years, I felt truly free. And I was never going back. The days that followed my final confrontation with my family were both liberating and unsettling. I had finally made the decision to sever ties with them, but that sense of freedom was tempered by the nagging feeling that there was more to this story than I had initially realized. I had just returned from a long walk trying to clear my head when my phone buzzed. I didn't recognize the number, but something about it made my heart skip. I hesitated before answering, but when I did, I heard a voice that immediately made my skin prickle with familiarity. Emily. The voice was calm, steady, but there was an underlying urgency that caught my attention. It's Rachel. We need to talk. Can we meet? Rachel. I hadn't heard that name in years. Rachel was a family friend, someone who had worked as my parents' financial advisor when I was younger. She had always been kind to me, though I hadn't seen her since she retired. Yeah, of course, I said, my voice tinged with confusion. What's going on? I can't explain everything over the phone. It's about your inheritance. Can you meet me at the cafe on 5th and Main in an hour? It's important. My heart dropped. Inheritance. The word echoed in my mind. This couldn't be a coincidence, could it? After everything that had come to light, I was starting to wonder if there was more to this than just the emotional manipulation. Could there be something even more sinister at play? I agreed to meet her, my mind racing the entire way there. What did she know? What did she have to tell me? As I approached the cafe, I saw Rachel sitting at a table near the window, an envelope in front of her. She looked nervous, glancing around before spotting me. Emily, she said softly as I sat down. She smiled weakly, but there was a seriousness in her eyes. I've been carrying this guilt for a long time. What do you mean? I asked, trying to steady my breathing. What guilt? Rachel looked around again before sliding the envelope across the table toward me. Your grandfather left you an inheritance, Emily. A significant one. And your parents, well, they've been hiding it from you. All this time they've been keeping it from you. I blinked, stunned. What? My grandfather left me money? Why would they keep that from me? Rachel's hands trembled slightly as she pushed the envelope closer. Because they didn't want you to have it. They didn't want you to know about it. Instead, they took it and gave it to Olivia. They've been using it for years to fund her lifestyle, to support her adventures. It's all there, Emily. The documents, the transfers, they're in that envelope. My fingers shook as I picked up the envelope. Inside, there were several legal documents, bank statements, and what appeared to be a series of letters from my grandfather's lawyer. My head swirled as I started flipping through them. It was all there. My grandfather had left me nearly $300,000 when I turned 25, with specific instructions for how it was to be used, for my education, for my future. But instead of receiving it, it had been transferred to Olivia's accounts. The more I read, the more I felt the ground beneath me shifting. This wasn't just about a few misplaced funds or forgotten paperwork. This was an intentional, systematic theft. How did they do this? I whispered, my voice barely audible as I processed the betrayal. They used your power of attorney, Rachel replied. When you were a minor, they had you sign it, under the guise that it was for emergency medical decisions. They told you it was just a formality, that you needed to sign it in case something happened. But in reality, it gave them complete control over your financial decisions. They sold properties that were supposed to be split between you and Olivia. They took that money and funneled it to Olivia's accounts. I felt dizzy. It was like the world had tilted on its axis. All those years I had spent working hard, sacrificing, thinking I was helping my parents, thinking I was doing the right thing, it had all been a lie. And now I was seeing the full extent of that lie. Rachel pushed a few more papers toward me. These are the transactions. The payments to Olivia's businesses. The funds that were transferred to her without your knowledge. I have everything you need to prove it. But I can't do this alone, Emily. I need you to take action. I looked at the documents in front of me, my eyes scanning the numbers, the dates, the names of financial institutions that had been complicit in this scheme. The cold, hard evidence was undeniable. This wasn't just a family betrayal. It was financial fraud. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to breathe through the rage and disbelief that flooded my body. I had been robbed, not just of money but of my trust, my sense of security, and my future. My parents had stolen from me in a way that I could never have imagined. I want to file a lawsuit, I said, my voice trembling but resolute. I'm not letting them get away with this. Rachel's eyes softened. Are you sure, Emily? This could destroy everything. It could destroy your relationship with your family for good. I've already lost them, I said quietly, my hands trembling as I clutched the papers. They've already made their choice. And now it's time for me to make mine. The next few days felt like a blur. I gathered the evidence Rachel had given me, meticulously sorting through every document, every transaction. I contacted a lawyer specializing in estate fraud, Sarah Chan, who confirmed what I already knew. This was a clear-cut case of financial exploitation. The more we discussed it, the more I realized the depth of the betrayal. This wasn't just about money, it was about control. My parents had manipulated me, stolen from me, and kept me in the dark for years. As I prepared to file the lawsuit, I felt a strange sense of clarity wash over me. I was no longer the quiet, obedient daughter. I was Emily Parker, and I would fight for what was mine. I wasn't going to let them get away with destroying my life, my future, and my sense of self. The process was long and at times overwhelming, but I knew I had to see it through. For me. For the little girl who had been ignored and discarded by the very people who should have protected her. And as the legal papers were filed, as the wheels of justice began to turn, I realized something that I hadn't fully understood until then. They hadn't just stolen money from me. They had stolen my power. But now I was taking it back. The days after I filed the lawsuit passed slowly, each one feeling like a battle won but not yet finished. I worked with Sarah Chan, my lawyer, preparing the case against my parents, meticulously going through the evidence we had gathered. Every document, every transaction, every lie. They all came together in a powerful web of deceit. But even as I prepared to take my family to court, there was a part of me that still felt conflicted. I had spent so much of my life trying to earn their love, trying to fit into a role they had assigned me, and now I was about to tear that role apart. As the case progressed, Sarah and I discussed my options in detail. We knew what we had: the evidence of my parents' fraudulent handling of my inheritance, the power of attorney they had manipulated me into signing, the documents showing how Olivia had benefited from my grandfather's legacy. But there was still a decision to be made. Did I want to go through with it? Was I ready to sever all ties with the family? I can't keep living like this, I said to Sarah one evening, my voice quiet but firm. They've taken everything from me, Sarah. Not just the money but my sense of self. I need to take back control. She nodded, understanding the weight of my words. You're doing the right thing, Emily. But just be prepared. This could get ugly, especially with your family. They won't take this lightly. I knew she was right. But there was no turning back now. The day of the final confrontation arrived, and I felt the familiar weight of tension settle over me. I had asked my parents to come to my apartment for a meeting, an opportunity for them to make things right before the legal process escalated. I had already prepared the legal papers, the official demands, and the evidence. But there was one thing I had to do first: face them. As I waited for them to arrive, I felt a wave of calm wash over me. This was it. The moment I had been building toward for months. I wasn't the same person I had been before. The meek, obedient daughter was gone. Now I was Emily Parker, the one who would stand up for herself and demand what was rightfully hers. The doorbell rang. I stood up, taking a deep breath, and opened the door to find my parents standing in the hallway. Their expressions a mix of guilt, anger, and defensiveness. Olivia was with them, her face as calm as ever, though I could see the faintest hint of concern in her eyes. "We're here," my mother said, her voice strained but still trying to sound upbeat, as if nothing had happened. "What is this about, Emily? Why did you want us to come here?" I didn't invite them to sit down. I wasn't going to play games anymore. "I need to talk to you about the inheritance," I said, my voice cold and steady. "About what you've been hiding from me. About what you've stolen from me." I watched as their faces tightened. My father shifted uncomfortably, while my mother's eyes darted nervously. Olivia's face remained blank, unreadable. "Emily," my father said, his voice stiff, "I don't know what you're talking about. You need to stop with this nonsense. We've already explained everything." "No," I cut him off. "You haven't explained anything. You've been lying to me, manipulating me, and stealing from me. I've seen the evidence. I know about the money my grandfather left me, the money you took and gave to Olivia, the properties you sold without my consent, the funds you transferred into Olivia's accounts while I was kept in the dark. I have all the proof I need." I placed the legal documents on the table in front of them. "This isn't just about money, though. This is about control. About how you've made me feel like I wasn't good enough. How you made me believe I was the problem. Well, I'm done with that." My father's face reddened, his jaw tightening. "Emily, this is absurd. You're overreacting. We've been trying to help you. Trying to make sure you're okay. Help me." I laughed bitterly. "By keeping me in the dark about my own inheritance? By making me feel like an outsider in my own family? You never wanted me to know about the money because you didn't think I deserved it. You thought Olivia was the one who needed it more, didn't you?" I turned to Olivia, my gaze hardening. "You knew, didn't you? You knew everything. You knew about the inheritance and you never told me. You let them lie to me, let them steal from me." Olivia's expression faltered for a split second, and I saw something I had never seen before: guilt. But then just as quickly it was gone, replaced by that same cold, perfect mask she wore so well. She took a step forward, her voice laced with an arrogance I had come to expect. "I didn't have anything to do with this," Olivia said, her tone dripping with disdain. "This is all about you making drama. Why do you always have to make everything about you? You've always been the one causing trouble. And now you're trying to blame me for something that's not even my fault." I felt a surge of anger rise within me, but I forced myself to stay calm. I couldn't let her manipulate me anymore. "No, Olivia," I said, my voice steady but firm. "You've been part of this all along. You knew what was going on and you didn't say a word. You're just as guilty as they are." Olivia's face hardened. "You don't know what you're talking about, Emily. You've always been jealous of me, haven't you? You've always tried to bring me down." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Jealous? Of her? She was the one who had taken what was rightfully mine, and now she was trying to play the victim? "That's enough," I said, my voice cutting through the tension in the room. "You don't get to do this anymore. You don't get to play innocent. I've seen everything, how you've manipulated me, how you've been using my inheritance to fund your lifestyle. This ends now." I turned to my parents. "I'm demanding that you return everything you've taken from me. The money, the properties, everything. If you don't, I will take legal action. If you don't own up to your mistakes, I will make sure everyone knows the truth. And I won't stop until I get what's mine." My mother looked at me, her eyes wide, but there was no apology there. Just fear. Fear that the perfect life they had built would come crashing down. Olivia was the first to break the silence. "You don't know what you're doing. You think this will fix things, but it won't. You'll regret this." But I didn't care anymore. I had made my choice. I wasn't going to be the quiet, obedient daughter any longer. I wasn't going to let them control me. Not anymore. This was my life now, and I was going to take it back no matter the cost. The days following the confrontation with my family felt surreal. Every ounce of anger, every bit of confusion that had clouded my mind for so long, had been released in that moment. But as I sat there staring at the empty apartment around me, there was a strange calm settling over me. I had made my choice. I had confronted them, and now it was time to face the consequences. I had officially filed the lawsuit. It wasn't easy and it wasn't quick. There were moments when I questioned whether I was doing the right thing, but those doubts never lasted long. The evidence was irrefutable. My parents had lied to me, manipulated me, and stolen from me. Olivia had been complicit, whether she acknowledged it or not. The first few weeks after I filed the suit were filled with a mixture of anticipation and dread. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from relatives, from friends who had known the truth, from people who were now suddenly concerned about what was happening. But no one truly understood what I had gone through, what I was fighting for. My family, despite the public spectacle I had forced them into, had stuck to their story. They denied everything, claimed I was making things up, that I was bitter and angry for reasons I couldn't articulate. They tried to paint me as the villain, the ungrateful daughter, the one who was trying to tear the family apart. But the truth, as it always does, came to light. A month later, the first court hearing was scheduled. I sat in that sterile room, surrounded by papers, documents, and legal jargon that seemed so far removed from the family I had once known. The case was complicated, but the facts were clear. My parents had stolen from me, manipulated legal documents, sold property that was meant to be mine, and funneled money into Olivia's accounts. They had betrayed my trust in ways I couldn't have imagined, and in the end they lost. The judge ruled in my favor. The inheritance, all of it, was to be returned to me with interest. My parents were forced to pay restitution. Olivia's share of the money was ordered to be returned as well, though it was unclear how much of it would actually be recovered. The damages were significant, but it wasn't the money that mattered to me anymore. It was the principle. It was the fact that I had taken back my power, my life, and my dignity. The day I received the final judgment felt like the end of a long, exhausting chapter of my life. But it was also the beginning of something new. Something that had been waiting for me all along. Buried beneath the years of guilt, fear, and shame. The moment the ruling came through, I realized that I was free. Not just from my family, but from everything that had kept me in that cage for so long. My parents, predictably, were furious. They didn't accept the judgment, nor did they acknowledge their wrongdoings. But that no longer mattered. I had learned the hard way that their approval wasn't something I needed. It was a toxic force that had kept me trapped in their expectations. A force I could no longer allow to have power over me. As the months passed, I moved on with my life. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I took time for myself, real uninterrupted time to figure out who I was outside of their influence. I pursued my passions, things I had long set aside: painting, travel, writing, and slowly started building a life that was truly mine. I moved to a new apartment, one that felt like home in ways I had never known before. I rearranged my life piece by piece, until I was no longer the person I had been, no longer the one who had been forced to live in their shadow. And more importantly, I started forming relationships that were based on mutual respect, honesty, and kindness. No longer did I need to hide who I truly was. No longer did I have to be the perfect daughter, the one who lived to meet everyone's expectations. I could finally be myself unapologetically, fully. A year after the court ruling, I found myself sitting at a cafe, sipping a coffee, and watching the world move around me. It felt strange, this quiet sense of peace I had found. I was no longer bound by the ties that had once suffocated me. The stress, the anger, the guilt. All of it had faded, replaced by something more powerful: freedom. I had learned that true freedom wasn't about breaking away from my family. It was about breaking away from the patterns of behavior that had been instilled in me from a young age. It was about finding my voice and standing up for myself, even when it meant going against everything I had been taught to believe. I had also learned that family wasn't defined by blood. It wasn't about the people who shared your last name or your DNA. It was about the people who truly cared for you, who saw you for who you were, not who they wanted you to be. Over the past year, I had built a new support system. True friends who valued me for my honesty, my strength, and my authenticity. I thought about my parents, about Olivia, and the painful lessons I had learned through them. I no longer felt bitter toward them, but I didn't feel the need to have them in my life either. They had made their choices and I had made mine. And for the first time in my life, I was content with the path I had chosen. I looked out the cafe window, watching the city go by, the people rushing to and fro. There was a slight breeze in the air, a crispness that reminded me of new beginnings. My life was my own now. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time I wasn't afraid of it. I was ready to walk it on my terms. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. There was a message from a close friend, a text that simply read, "Let's get dinner tonight. I've missed you." I smiled, typing back a quick response, knowing that this was what mattered now. Real relationships built on trust, love, and mutual respect. I was free, finally free. And that freedom had given me everything I needed to rebuild my life the way I wanted. The journey had been long, but I was no longer bound by the past. I was ready to move forward, to live the life I deserved. And for the first time, I truly felt like I was on the path to happiness.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for updates on new videos. See you next time.